This is One Voice Lenawee. Stay informed. COVID vaccinations and booster shots. How does this affect our children, finances, and the cost of living, race, and the fight for equity and equality? What will education look like in the future? What you should know about good health practices, employment, and job interviews in today's world. You need to know. Stay connected. One Voice Lenawee. Access to the information you've been looking for. Sponsored by United Way of Monroe and Lenawee counties. Now we present to you our host, D'Angelo Boone. Welcome to One Voice Lenawee. Glad to have you with us today. Glad to be able to share this opportunity, this moment with you, and the information that we're going to make available. So today we're living in a very different world, right? Where there are questions about police and race relations, police engagement when it comes to our community. How does law enforcement feel about today's environment? How does the police department deal with interactions with the general public and their personal concerns regarding safety, health, and COVID, right? So we've got all of these things and these ideas that are going around. And I think that it's time that we have a conversation with someone who just may know the answers. Our guest today is someone that can help us address some of these questions that we have. What does police relation looks like today when it comes to engagement, inclusion, diversity? What does it look like when it comes to COVID and safety for our officers and for our general public? What does this look like? So hold on tight. What's coming up next, you're gonna wanna hear. And we have a guest today. Our guest is the Chief of Police for the Adrian Police Department, Chief Vince Emmerich. And we'll bring him in just a moment. But right now, we want to have a word from our sponsor.
736 million people struggle to meet their basic needs. An estimated 40 million people have fallen victim to human trafficking. 51 million kids go hungry every day. And every day, United Way and our partners, including Kellogg, Wells Fargo, and UPS, fight for the health, education, and financial stability of every person in every community.
Welcome back to One Voice Lenawee. Glad to have you with us today. Glad to have you here to share this information. This show, One Voice Lenawee, is sponsored by United Way of Monroe and Lenawee County. And glad to have you here. Right now, we want to take this moment to bring in our guest, Chief Vince Emmerich of the Adrian Police Department. Chief Emmerich, welcome to the show, Chief Emmerich.
Thank you, Pastor. Glad to be here.
And I'm just glad to have you on the show. Glad to have you as a part of our broadcast this month as well. And thank you for taking the time out of your schedule. I can only imagine how busy you are. So I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to be with us this day. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if you would you mind just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am the Chief of Police here in the city of Adrian. I grew up in Lenawee, just outside of Blissfield, actually, and I was raised in a Catholic family. So when it came time to go to high school, I went to St. Mary's in Monroe. And then I came back to Lenawee to go to college. I went to Siena, where I got my bachelor's in 2000. I was going to school. I was working at Carpet Outlet Plus over there, driving a forklift, and I was dispatching part-time in Tecumseh and doing my internship here in Adrian at the same time. So it was a lot to take in. And then when I graduated, I actually got hired in Toledo in the same week that I got hired here in Adrian. So Toledo paid a little bit more, but I wanted to stay local, so I took the job in Adrian, and they sent me to the police academy. So I was actually a sponsored cadet, which is something that we got away from, and we're only now getting back into as a means to open the door for people who couldn't otherwise go to the police academy. I mean, it's expensive. So it was a great opportunity for me as a college student. So I got to join the force. I promoted up through the ranks, and I finished my master's degree along the way. I got a master's from Eastern. Beyond that, I am married. I have 3 kids. They are 17, 14, and 11, and life only picks up speed. Am I right? I mean,
Right.
things get pretty
Yep.
crazy once they start playing sports every night and weekend. Um, Me personally, I love the outdoors. I am a diehard Lions fan, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. Bittersweet with Stafford winning the Super Bowl, but glad to see him succeed. Also, I enjoy history. My my favorite pastime is to go through and watch video clips while I eat my lunch. And as I get older, my memory's not so great, so I can watch something and I get 20 minutes in before I realize I've already seen that one. But I do like to study history and visit museums. And I do one of the other things I kind of get teased about is I like to go to the Ren Fest. I don't know if you've ever been there,
I
Pastor.
haven't been there. No.
Ollie. Yeah, so it's kind of cool. I don't dress up or anything like that, but sometimes it's fun to see how imagine how people would have lived before all that technology that we have right now. So
Right.
that's it in a nutshell. My hobbies, what I'm doing. It's been 20 years in Adrian, and happy to be here.
Thank you. Appreciate that information. Go Saints. I just want to put that out there as well. Yep. There's a renaissance that takes place, I think, somewhere, I want to say somewhere near Saginaw or Traverse City, somewhere around that area. And I plan to attend. I've been invited. So I do plan to make my way out to one of those and see what that's like. I can't wait to dress up and kind of go back to that era. I think it would be kind of awesome to experience.
Well, if you're gonna dress up, send me a picture because I might start doing the same. Then if you're gonna go that far, then I can do the same. I'll manage.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. The person that invited me told me that I cannot go if I will not dress the part. So.
Oh wow. Okay. No, usually my wife Jessica, she likes to dress up. She dressed up last year, and I was a guy in jeans and a t-shirt, and then I had this medieval-looking woman with me. So.
Yo, so yes, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go all out when I get that opportunity to go. So yeah, and I'm taking all kind of pictures. So. Yep. So all my friends and all my Facebook followers and TikTok followers, beware, it's coming. Yep. So you've been in our community for over 20 years, serving in law enforcement, and now you're the chief of police, serving our community. And so how has life been? I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. There are social issues going on throughout the world right now. That involves the police department. So how has life been as the chief of police in Adrian?
Well, the pandemic obviously presented a lot of challenges. It kind of started as a fearful thing. We didn't know a lot about the disease or what was happening, and it was new. And everyone here, obviously, we're the front line to the public. So we were worried that it was, we would all be sick, or that something would happen that would come along, and we'd all be in the hospital, or we wouldn't be able to field enough people to deal with emergencies. And thankfully, it wound up not being that serious. As time went on, we learned better how to protect ourselves and limit exposure. But we also entered into this weird, confusing time where different places, different agencies, schools, everyone kind of adopted their own rules as far as what they wanted people to do. And there were mask mandates and a lot of things that weren't necessarily laws. So they were expecting us to enforce things that weren't really, actual laws. And we had to kind of navigate those scenarios. And thankfully, here in Adrian, I mean, we've heard horror stories other places. But here in Adrian, people mostly kept a cool head. I mean, there was a couple of spirited discussions, I would call them, but most times cooler heads prevailed, and we didn't have anything really dramatic happen. There were no wild altercations about wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. So we had to deal with that and kind of find our way through that. The other part that kind of became a problem for us was, in order to limit exposure, the jail stopped accepting prisoners for anything less than a major felony. So you would go out on the road and you'd make an arrest, something like a retail fraud or perhaps a property crime. And, the victim would want to see you take that person to jail, and that's not what would happen. So the assumption became that that we weren't doing our jobs because not everyone was landing in jail like maybe historically they might have been.
Right.
So we had to do a better job of explaining to victims what the outcomes were going to be and why they were that way. And we even now, right now, the jail I think is maintaining that policy right now. So we would have periods where it would kind of relax and we could go back to taking people to jail for all offenses. But right now there was a spike recently with the different COVID variant, and they went back to that policy of only violent felonies. So and it's understandable. It's frustrating, but it's understandable because that population is so vulnerable. I mean, everyone lives together in the same common area, and if it were to get into there, it's going to affect everyone. So it's hard to be patient and understanding, but you got to see the bigger picture involved there. So it has definitely presented a lot of challenges for us, but we're doing our best to work around those.
Do you think that it's out in public that the police aren't making these that they aren't making these kind of arrests right now or incarcerating people so that people are maybe a little bit more risky, doing riskier things than they would do because of this?
That's hard to say because we also took steps to try to limit our contact as well. So for example, if it was something where there wasn't a suspect present, where nobody was in danger, let's say a stolen bike that was being reported 2 days later, instead of going to the home to take the report, oftentimes we call them on the phone. We get the information, we follow up at a distance, so we would have less interaction. And to the complainant, that I could see that being a little off-putting, like, okay, you can't even send a car to take my complaint. So we have to better describe what's going on. We have to give that person more information, spend more time there, where maybe before we would just take the complaint, get on with what we had to do and move on to the next thing. Now we have to kind of explain what's happening there. So I think the public, we're, what are we, 2 years into this now? I think they're starting to see what's happening. I mean, there was a stretch there where we made fewer traffic stops, so I think people probably did recognize that, and maybe they took advantage of it a little bit. So in those months when things started to open back up, we had to be that much more diligent to get that behavior back under control. So I think that you see the trend nationally, as far as property crimes and thefts and larcenies. I do think that it's probably up. I don't have the numbers in front of me here, but we're about to publish our annual report, which would show if we experienced a spike or not in that in the last year. But my guess would be yes. I mean, my guess would be as we had to change and adapt, so would the nature of those who would commit the offenses.
A few years ago, at the old courthouse, there was a Black Lives Matter march. There was the police department was there, local churches were there, other groups were there participating. When it comes to the local police department, has there been any tension between the police department and local community?
I would say yes. I mean, it seems like our job is dealing with tension. Nobody calls us when they're having a good day, but in terms of everything that's happening around us, I mean, yeah, the protests were something new for us to deal with here in Adrian. And if you remember, I want to say it was the first major protest at the courthouse that went through. It progressed. We had everything cordoned off. We had everything, so no vehicles could get in. Everybody was safe to participate. There was a march down to Comstock Park, and then there was a little ceremony there, and the group dispersed. And what wound up happening was kind of an impromptu gathering in front of the police station, and that was unexpected, though not necessarily hostile. It was a group of people that wanted to express their outrage at what was happening, something that we could all agree was wrong, but it materialized here in front of our building. So it was hard not to say that it was directed at us, but in so much as when the organizers were putting that together, they actually invited us to participate and asked me and the sheriff and some others to actually be present as part of that ceremony. So I did not feel personally attacked in any way. In fact, I was honored to be invited. It was something that we could all agree was wrong and that we all wanted to take a stance against. but I think there was so much energy surrounding what was happening that some people did focus it on our building there, and even though it wasn't, there wasn't anything violent or there wasn't any property damage, there was a slight interruption in traffic for a bit of time that we quickly rerouted, and everything was fine. But in so much as on the largest stage, the national stage where buildings were burned and people were hurt and things were happening, we didn't have anything like that, thankfully.
Glad to be able to participate in that. So I got a chance to see that in action and to see the engagement of the local police department as well as the sheriff's department as well, and other partners in community come together to be a part of that protest, and to see that our community could have a peaceful gathering of that nature and express the concerns that the community has, and especially those of brown and black people when it comes to police and law enforcement and their concerns, and kind of get that information out there, but have it as a partnership versus one against the other. So I thought that was a really fantastic way for that to be done, and just to kind of witness it firsthand. So with COVID, are they looking for those individuals for masks when they're pulled over, or engaging with local law enforcement, civilians to notify the police officers if they have their vaccinations or if they're COVID positive, or what happens when someone is COVID positive and a stop's being made?
Yeah, that's been something kind of fluid as time has gone on. I think originally we were trying to keep track, and it was difficult because that's someone's private health information. I mean, you can't, there's a lot of things that you can't require them to release to you. But as time went on, we were better able to, I mean, masks, gloves, everything was sold out when we started, and everyone was doing their best to scramble and find those things. But as time went on, they became more available, and we were able to better protect ourselves. And one of the best things we had working in our favor was that almost all of our contacts occur outdoors. So if we pull someone over, or if we respond to a house, we would generally ask them to step outside. That way we were not all in these confined spaces. And if someone didn't want to put on a mask, or if someone didn't want to have that face-to-face contact, we could usually find a way to communicate that everyone would be comfortable in that scenario. So again, it's something that we've just had to adapt as time went on. And at first we were kind of scrambling to figure things out, but as time went on, thankfully everything, the glove shortages suddenly stopped, and we had all the things that we needed, that we could almost get back to normal if that were going to be an option for us.
Right. Yep. And what is your hope when it comes to race relation and police engagement for our community?
My hope is that we continue the communication that we have enjoyed through this time. I think right now there are so many changes happening with the clean slate legislation, the trend towards pretrial release, that things are changing very quickly. And I don't know that the outcomes are necessarily maybe what we expected. I think that people on all sides of the equation are sometimes confused or unhappy with what's going on. And as long as we can keep that open line of communication, we can sort it out and figure out where we want to be. Thankfully in Adrian, we're a small enough town that generally all the officers know most of the public, and vice versa. And if there's an issue, they know who to contact and reach out. So we haven't had a whole lot of divisive confrontations or anything like that. I mean, thankfully most people have been very easy to work with, and that's what I hope we would continue. Obviously if someone is upset with the way something was handled, a good example unfortunately is in reference to the protests in front of our building, where we had that person who tried to drive through the crowd, and that really ignited things. But it was more of a problem with the system and the process than it was necessarily with the police, if that makes sense. That I think people were waiting for that trial to happen for almost a year, and it just it was just postponed and postponed. And I can remember people asking, when's this going to happen? And you do your best to explain why things are being held up, but as an officer, once you make the arrest, then it's more or less out of your hands. How those things proceed through court, that involves the judges and the prosecutor's office and other things that aren't under our control. So I would hope that people were patient and that they took the time to understand the problem before they took action on it. I mean, the only way to solve a problem is to really get into it and find out what it is and what we need to do to fix it. And I hope that people would continue to communicate with us and try to figure that out together, as opposed to being upset, pointing the finger, or doing something unnecessary.
And I'm really excited that there is this line of communication that is open between the police department and residents within our community, whether that's a conversation with the A3 All About Aging Resident Coalition. I know that we've had young people come to the police department to kind of check it out, to see how things operate and how things work there. And just to know that we have a police department that's really open to the community and really looking to have positive engagement and continue that. So I think that speaks well of your leadership with the Aging Police Department as well. So I'm just really excited that those things are taking place in our community. Could you explain the difference between what the Adrian Police Department does and what the County Sheriff's Department does, or what areas they cover?
Sure. Yeah, no, that's an easy one. So you have different levels of law enforcement. You have federal, state, county, local. Basically, we do the same things, but we have different jurisdictions. So anything within the city of Adrian falls to us. However, if it were to happen in front of a county deputy or a state trooper or even a federal agent, they also have that authority, because the city is within the county, it's within the state. But for example, if let's say if there's a case that spans multiple jurisdictions, so let's say, for example, we had a fraud case with a nexus here in Adrian, but we know this person also did something in Blissfield or Hudson, or maybe even far north, let's say Grand Rapids. We might do our portion or partner with the state. We can work together on an investigation, or we might give it to them. We might say, hey, listen, this extends beyond the city of Adrian. Can you handle this? And we'll assist in any way that we can, and we might do that. So the state, obviously, the troopers have jurisdiction anywhere in the state, but they have local posts. So
Okay.
you wouldn't dispatch a trooper from the Monroe post to the Upper Peninsula, for example. That wouldn't make any sense. So they have different locations all around. And then we have here in Lenawee, we have a very strong mutual aid agreement. So if something major were to happen in Adrian, a shooting, for example, or something that required all of our staff to respond to, then officers from the townships on the different borders of the city would then respond and handle other calls that we couldn't get to. So it has been an incredible partnership, and it's something that we enjoy in Lenawee. And it's not like this everywhere. I wish it were, but I know that other places look to us to see how our example is working so well. But it has been great, and the same is true. If the county needs a backup officer, say down in Fairfield or somewhere close to our border, sometimes we'll send a car to be that backup unit if theirs is too far away. So mainly it comes down to geographic area, and essentially we all investigate the same crimes. Depending on where it happened is who your agency is going to be responding.
Okay. For my audience that's watching, I know we had a couple that asked that question, so I'm hoping that answers your question as well for the audience that's watching. And also, if somebody was interested in serving as law enforcement in our community, what would be the process?
Well, it depends on where the person is in terms of their education. The main requirement is that they have to be certified by the state as an officer, and you get that by going to the police academy. So the accrediting agency is called MCOLS. It's the Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement Standards, and they have a website, and I think there's even a video link to that anybody can go on and see kind of the steps. But essentially, you have to, if you don't have a job, so I mentioned that I was sponsored, right? I was sponsored through the
Yeah.
police academy. If I did not have that, I would have to have an associate's degree to get into a police academy. And then I would have to attend the police academy for 4 months to attain my certification. Then I would be certified as an officer, but I would have to go and apply and find a job after that. The way it worked out for me is that I got through school. I was sponsored, meaning the city paid my tuition and they paid me a small wage to go, so that when I graduated, I already had a job.
Okay.
And that also eliminates that need for an associate's degree. So an academy will take you with just a high school diploma if you are a sponsored candidate. So really, it's that obstacle. It's that 4 months in the police academy, and depending on which one you go to, that I think there's 20 police academies in the state, and they range in tuition from about $6,000 to about $10,000, depending on where you go. And the real obstacle is that they are so intensive. I mean, you're there for 10 hours a day. You might go to class for 4. You might have physical training for 4 hours. Then you might do scenarios in the evening. When I went, it was 7 days a week. So you would go to the range on Saturday, and then you would do your pursuit driving on Sunday. So for a young person, you know, I had an apartment, I had bills, I had a fiance, and to try to maintain all of that and pay all of that tuition and spend all of that time, you can't have a job, you can't do those, you can't maintain your life and still go to that. So it is a huge obstacle, which is why we have gone back to sponsorship, because that's what it's going to take to help us get our own local students through and pick good quality candidates who otherwise couldn't afford to do that. Because I remember how impossible feeling it was back then as a college student or a young person that wanted to go down this path. So that's the big one. And for us, we try to make it as simple as possible to apply. Our application is it's about 2 pages, and it's on our website. And I would say don't worry about if we have a vacancy or not, because we will hold those for up to a year, and we go through, I want to say we had about 2 hiring phases last year. So we get through them all. If you apply, you will be contacted. Absolutely.
Yeah, let's say that the Adrian Police Department is given the sponsorship. Is that paid while they're in training?
Yes. So it's something that we worked out with the union. So, for example, we use the police academy that is associated with Schoolcraft College in Livonia, and it's called Wayne County Regional Police Training Center. So we would get the person through all of the application process, which is pretty detailed. I mean, there has to be a physical to show that they're healthy enough to participate. There's a drug screen. The MCOLs, they require a background investigation. There's pre-academy testing, so you have to pass certain physical tests. So you have to be able to do, it's like 30 push-ups and 30 sit-ups in a minute. You have a vertical jump, a half-mile run. Once you get the physical portion out of the way, there's a written test. That's basically just a general knowledge. So once you get those pre-tests out of the way, that clears the way for you to go to the academy. So the city would pay the tuition. You would receive the current wage is $18 an hour while you're going. And then once you graduate the academy and begin as a patrol officer, then you get bumped up to the full patrol pay. Okay. And then while you're there, there's also a number of expenses that the city covers in terms of workout gear, uniforms, your duty gear, your vest, all of that stuff is covered and fitted and ready for you, so that when you're walking across the stage at graduation, it's in one of our uniforms ready to go.
Yeah, if I've had conversations with some of people of color in the community and their nervousness when it comes to being interacting with local law enforcement when they're being pulled over. And so what would be a piece of advice that you would give to a person of color that is being pulled over and they're nervous about this encounter? What would be your your advice to a person of color that's being pulled over when it comes to engaging with an officer?
Yeah, thank you, Pastor. I should have brought that up during the tension piece. That's a great question. The narrative that you mentioned, that's on both sides, so everyone involved in that stop. The officer has fears and expectations about what they think is going to happen. The driver has the same, so my advice, if you're pulled over, just take a deep breath, because as the officer approaches, we're trained to look for a number of things. If you're, say you start looking for your driver's license or your insurance, don't worry about any of that stuff. Just relax, keep your hands on the wheel where the officer can see them. As they approach, you're going to have that interaction, and hopefully all of that falls away. The officer will introduce themselves, the person will respond, what's the issue or whatever the question may be, and then hopefully that interaction will be able to take place without any stress or anxiety or any of those completely understandable feelings that that person is going to be having at that time. As officers, it can be a nerve-wracking experience. You when you're in the academy, you see all these terrible things that happen sometimes, and it is easy to get into that mode where you feel like maybe that's going to happen all the time, or that could happen to me, and you try to be as diligent as you can, and that evokes a response from the person in the car. So when I'm coming up and I want to make sure that the trunk lid is closed and put my fingerprints on the back of that car, what is that evoking from the driver? Why is he doing that? What's going on? Why am I here? Why is this happening to me? So my hope is that we train our people well enough, and I think that we have the experience level necessary, that we want to kind of take those walls down as soon as we're able to. So in that moment, don't worry about finding your paperwork. Just, be still. They will approach. When they identify, that's when the exchange can happen. And that's not to say that something dramatic is going to happen if you do start digging for your paperwork. It's just something in the officer's mind. Okay, maybe I need to see what's in that glove box, or maybe there's a cause for concern here that maybe there's not one. So my advice is to just relax. Everyone involved, it's just people. It's two people that are about to meet each other and have an exchange over something that could wind up being nothing. So I would ask for patience and understanding, and I expect the same from our people when they make the stops.
Appreciate that. If there's anything else that you'd like to share with our community?
I would just like to thank our community for all of the patience and understanding that has been shown to us throughout these incredibly trying times. You see things that have unfolded elsewhere, and that didn't happen in Adrian. That's a testament to our citizens, to any relationships that we have, and the open line of communication that we do enjoy. Obviously, terrible things have happened. We can all agree that things need to change, and the only way to effectively do that is by working together and not being divided on subjects. So I would welcome any phone calls, any communication. We normally like to do tours, and we bring groups in, and we've had meetings here at the police station. Dialed that back a little bit with all of the COVID stuff, but I'm hoping that we can open it back again soon. We do ride-alongs. The form to request a ride-along is also on our website. But if there's anything I can do, if I can be of service in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out.
And Chief Emmerich, I really want to say thank you for taking the time to come on the show, to be with us today. And just as busy as I know your schedule must be, I'm really appreciative of this moment in this space. So thank you.
This is a fantastic opportunity, Pastor. Any chance I can to get out there and communicate, this is the important stuff that we need to be doing. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. And this is Chief Emmerich, the Adrian Police Department Chief for Adrian, and glad to have him on the show. I'm glad that he's able to be with us and serving our community in the capacities that he's serving. So thank you again.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Again, we thank you for joining the show. We thank you for being a part of our audience today. I ask that you click that subscribe button. If you have not subscribed yet to our channel, please stop right now, click that subscribe button, be a part of our audience, continue to follow with us, grow with us, learn with us as we navigate this world, right? The world that we're in, all the different changes and things that are taking place. As we continue to navigate this, we want you to be right there with us along the journey. So please hit that subscribe button right now. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, your loved ones, hey, there's some information out there, and we have the opportunity to be plugged into that information. One Voice Lenawee airs every second and fourth Monday at 6 p.m. right here. So join us. Don't miss out. This is the opportunity for you. If you have any ideas for a show or a topic that concerns you or that you're very interested in, type that right now in that comment section and let us get back to you on it. Who knows, the next show might just air the information that you were looking for. Again, this is One Voice Lenawee, brought to you by United Way of Monroe and Lenawee County, looking to come to you every second and fourth Monday right here. Don't wait, don't miss out. Join in today. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your neighbors. Again, be safe out there, dress appropriate for the weather, drive carefully, and have a safe, prosperous day.